ACCA, the world's most forward-thinking professional accountancy body.
Welcome to this episode of ACCA's Careerwise podcast, where this time we're talking about how to make a good first impression at your new job. And we're joined by Joanne Ritchie, who is Grant Thornton UK's Head of Learning. And in Singapore, we're joined by Kevin Can, who is an executive coach and mentor. If we could hand over to you guys first. Joanne, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. And it's a pleasure to be here today talking to everybody. As Neil said, my name is Jo and I am Head of Learning and Development for Grant Thornton UK. I started my own career in audit as an accountant many years ago on a similar graduate program to the sorts that we'll be talking about today. So I remember firsthand how nerve-wracking it can be, and actually just the benefit of conversations like this in helping making sure you're set up to really succeed from day one and beyond.
Excellent. Thank you, Jo. And over to you, Kevin, if you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Terrific. Hi, my name's Kevin Can, and I'm an executive and leadership coach as well as a mentor. I'm actually a chartered accountant by training. I've worked through the chartered accounting firms, so I can actually feel what your audience is going through. My area of expertise is to help people manage their careers as well as look at ways to engage employees. So hopefully we can have a great discussion today.
Thank you for joining us, both of you. And I'm just going to dive in. And I think everyone knows that starting a new job can be nerve-wracking as well as exciting. It's a great opportunity. But what should people genuinely expect from the first day, week, month? What are their employers genuinely expecting from them? And also, what should they expect of themselves? Jo, if we start with you.
So that's a really good question in terms of expectations, because it can be quite, like you say, it's nerve-wracking starting a new job. I think in terms of what you can expect, I would say a steep learning curve, because starting a new job, from understanding the basics of accounting to finding confidence in how it feels to be part of a new company, the technology, the methodology, the culture, and many won't have done relevant studies before, and that's okay. I didn't either. But you need to be curious. You need to expect to ask lots of questions right from the get-go.
That's interesting. Yeah. So bring your curiosity. Are you going to be under the microscope?
No, absolutely not. You're not expected to come in and make a dramatic impact. You're coming in to learn the ropes. So yes, you need to expect it to be a steep learning curve, like I said, but you also need to expect a personal commitment to professional and personal development. You're going to spend time studying towards qualifications. You're going to be learning how to balance work, life, and study. And it's tricky to navigate at first, and you absolutely won't get this balance quite right straight away. And again, that's okay. It's all part of that initial learning curve. But if you go in expecting that it's going to be steep, you'll need to ask lots of questions, you're going to be learning and growing right from the get-go, then that will remove some of that feeling of nervousness and overwhelm when you first start, I think.
Yeah, sure, that makes complete sense. And Kevin, the part of that question was, what should people expect of themselves? What should you be bringing to the table, do you think?
I think one of the major areas to consider is to have an open mindset, especially on day one, because if you go in there stressing, you're bound to fumble some of your speech, some of your sentences, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. So I think if you go in there with an open mindset and just be a sponge, have a look at everything that's happening around you, listening to the orientation. I know, especially in accounting firms, we have day one orientation, how you dress, how you converse, how you communicate, how to file audit papers. Like I went through all of that on my day one in an accounting firm. But more so now, it's about learning about security, all your email systems, instant messaging, the Microsoft Teams that most firms use. Like be a sponge, learn how all that works. Knowledge repositories, because as you get to know the systems, processes, people, that's just basically an asset to you, because then you know what to do next when the time comes.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, and try to remain calm as possible, I imagine, as well within that. Stay open-minded. I think the first day is the idea of the first day being a very stressful day, but it's possibly the easiest day in a way, because there is literally nothing expected of you on the first day, except for, yes, like you said, being a sponge, being open minded, being happy to be there. But once you move into the weeks and months, what does it actually mean to make a good impression? How do you impress your employer in those early days, Joanne?
So, yeah, I think for me, making a great first impression is important. It is really, really important. But
Mm.
the main emphasis in those first few weeks, like I said earlier, it isn't about making a dramatic impact. It's actually much, much more about demonstrating some of the smaller behaviors. So professionalism, enthusiasm,
Okay.
again, willingness to learn. So I always say when people ask me this question about first impressions that it's actually you shouldn't worry so much about whether your initial contributions are small, because employers are looking for the right attitude and we're looking for potential so much more than immediate impact at this early stage. And much of that, it's linked to behavior. It's not
Mm.
linked to knowledge, because we don't expect you to know it all or even anything at all. But there are lots of ways that you can make a great first impression. You can be punctual, reliable, completing tasks given to you on time. You can listen to those around
Mm.
you, your new colleagues, build relationships, asking questions, and that professionalism. What are you wearing? How are you communicating?
Mm.
Are you really obviously pleased to be there? That's what we're looking for in terms of great first impressions, not your technical knowledge at this stage.
Mm. So Kevin, that speaks a lot to the importance of soft skills these days, which is one of those areas in which every year employers seem to be crying out and really putting a lot of onus on the importance of having these soft skills, which include communication, teamwork, being able to make relationships, that sort of thing. Would you agree with Joe? Is what people need to focus on in the beginning, less the technical expertise and the delivery, and more of who they are, and making an effort with the culture?
Definitely. I think being able to know who the right people are, where to go for information, that just all helps with collaboration. And again, just like being a sponge, like learning how the processes work, how to communicate with a client,
Mm.
what happens in the client office if you're going out on site. Those things are important because as a new graduate joining a firm and you're going out to a client for the first time, you want to make sure that you leave a lasting impression, because it's not just about your personal brand, you are actually representing the firm. So
Mm.
that's quite important to go through. And I think the other thing that's important is it's important for first time graduates to understand expectations.
Mm.
So when you come out after that week of orientation and you're deployed onto your first audit job or first tax case that you're doing, what are the expectations that are expected of you?
Mm.
I think one of the things that new grads always underestimate is asking the question, when is this due by? What is my role in this team?
Yeah.
When do I have to complete certain tasks? And asking those questions, it's clear, transparent communication. And that's the best way of also managing your personal brand, because
Mm.
some of the partners will think that you're actually switched on.
Yeah, this is true. And actually, this leads me on to the next question, which is, at some point, you will be expected to start performing and delivering on the work. Most of these people would have studied at university, perhaps they're already studying ACCA. They're going to have a head full of knowledge. They probably want to flex the technical muscle and get involved and solve problems and actually do the job. Within this, how do you bring this energy without overstepping the mark, Joe?
Starting a new job, and by new job I do mean like the first probably 90 days and
Yeah.
beyond even, it is a high emotion time.
Mm.
And I think the mistake you can make is going in wanting to impress everybody. And actually, you really do need to take a step back and focus on doing your best, because
Mm.
you got that job for a reason.
Mm.
And I often have to remind people on programs that
Yes.
we have internally that you got the job for a reason, and so you should be confident in yourself. And if you
Hmm.
aren't sure of something, that's okay. You ask the questions of those around you, because as an employer, we're here to make sure you have the support network. We're here to make sure you have the resources that you'll need, the internal training, an ACCA or a professional qualification, and all of the onboarding that is much, much more than just that first week. We want you to feel confident in asking questions and understanding that you just simply don't need to know it all right now. And it's that perspective. And that's really hard when you're in a high emotions new role, to have that perspective. But you have to remind yourself continually that we were all new at some stage. All of those individuals, certainly in an accountancy firm, a professional services firm like ours, we were all new at some stage. And all of that uncertainty or nerves at the outset will dissipate, and mistakes are super normal. What matters actually, more than a person making a mistake, which is normal, I think what matters the most genuinely is how you respond to those challenges. So do you respond by saying, can I have some feedback? Where is it that I went wrong? How long should it have taken? Did I take too long? Oh, I didn't ask how long it should take at the beginning. Next time, when I'm giving a piece of work, I'm going to ask that individual, how long should this take? And I will grow. So again, it's mistakes are absolutely fine. It's how you respond to those mistakes, how you respond to challenges and feedback, and just getting yourself organized, remove as many layers of stress as possible. So organize yourself, work out what you're wearing, where you need to go, what you need once you're at work. If you've got your laptop, your notebook, have you got decent nutrition for the day to keep you energized? Remove as many things that you can control as possible. And then the rest, you either ask the questions, you learn, you grow, or you make mistakes and you grow. But either way, we've all been there, and it's absolutely fine.
Learning on the job. You were nodding along there, Kevin. So it sounds like this maybe sounds familiar to your days in the firms were starting out. Would you agree?
Yes, most definitely. I think the other thing that I would add to what Joe has said also is resiliency. I know that working on tax cases, right? Like, these are not the old days of where you have to go find the tax cases in the books and things like that. You can actually just go into the CCH systems online now and just look up the cases. So it's important to be able to demonstrate resourcefulness as well, because that's something that people will take notice of. Difficult situation, initiative, like those are the type of the things that as partners they're looking for as well. So for the next role, they're able to say they've got resourcefulness, they kind of know what to do already. We just need to guide them. And I'll add on to one point that Joe has said, which is actually quite important. You were hired for a reason, and the firm is investing in you. So maximize that opportunity by finding out as much information as possible, knowing what professional development there is, as Joe said, because the firm is here to make you successful.
That's a really good point. No one's trying to trip you up. They want you to succeed. Is there a value? I don't know if this is a protocol or if this happens. Is there a value in the new employee knowing why they were hired? Joe?
I would say if you can get feedback on your interview, it can be super helpful to understand, because as I say, feedback is the trick when it comes to growth, good feedback. So any insights into your strengths and areas for focus will be helpful. It will help you know what made you stand out. It will reinforce your confidence in those areas as you get started in that new role. And equally, if you did have any development areas fed back, you know immediately what you can then work on to make you even more successful. But to caveat, because I think often you don't get feedback, and that's okay too, because like I think both of us were just saying just now, you can find absolute confidence in having made it through actually a really rigorous selection process in many, many cases. And you do need to be proud of yourself for actually already having gone above and beyond. People forget when they first start that they're already miles ahead of the game, for all the hard work it takes to get through a hiring process. You should be confident that you deserve that place at the table. And actually now all you need to worry about is learning the ropes and getting that professionalism figured out.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, would you agree, Kevin?
Yes, most definitely. And I do agree it's useful to ask for feedback as to why you're hired. Because if we have a look at Gallup's Clifton Strengths, the philosophy behind strengths is
Mm.
maximizing what you're good at. So if you know what you're good at, then try and capitalize on that, do more of it, demonstrate what your strengths are, because
Yeah.
that's what people will notice. And in order to reach your full potential, it's sometimes better to focus on your strengths rather than labor over your weaknesses or lesser talents, because there are
Yeah.
some things that we may not be good at, and no matter how much time we invest in it, we may never be good at it. But if we know what our strengths are, then we can maximize it. And if we have teammates or co-workers that are better in the areas where we're not so good at, then collaboration, that's where it all comes in.
Mm. I also, this leads on to the question I have is what we've talked about what people should expect of themselves, but also what can they reasonably expect from an employer? Obviously, not every employer is the same, and not every employer is capable of providing a same level of L&D, learning and development, of support even. But I guess Joe, you can talk about Grant Thornton. What do you provide? What's reasonable for people to expect from you in terms of the development early on, but also just in terms of support, being there for them if needed.
Yeah, I mean, we've invested in each and every individual that joins our firm. So like we were saying earlier, we want you to succeed. We want
Mm.
them to do the very best they can and thrive and stay with us. But yeah, I think you mentioned it already. The most important thing to expect and to be reassured by is the supportive environment. We build the internal training and the professional qualifications pathway and all of those sorts of things. But above and beyond that, it's that supportive environment, knowing that you're coming in and you can trust that you're going to get mentorship, guidance from your colleagues and all of the management around you on what you need to do to thrive in our workplace. And we pride ourselves always on open communication. So
Mm.
feedback, yes, but also open channels for
Yeah.
questions, for concerns. We create support networks and communities and really clearly signpost all of the resources that an individual would need for support
Mm.
with their professional but also their personal well-being. So managing finances, managing nutrition and well-being alongside a new job and in some cases studying at the exact same time. We're not just there to put you onto a training program and roll you out into chartered accountancy. We're
Mm.
there to really build you out as a professional and to really support you in understanding what's to come so that you don't need to be nervous, but
Mm.
that if there's any blockers that you face or you come up against any walls, actually the first thing you do is say, okay, I have all these various places to go for support. I'm confident that there's somebody here that can help me,
Mm.
irrespective of level.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a very lovely working environment, to be honest.
Yeah, structured training, supportive environment, open
Mm.
communication, and it doesn't matter if you don't know it, and it doesn't matter if you're nervous and you're going to find things hard because you can just talk. You can talk to
Yeah.
somebody and get that help and guidance.
Yeah, and Kevin, this to ask you, you've worked with clients, so I imagine who've had good and bad experiences. When you've seen people who've worked with organisations who have been supported, provided them that, do you notice a different kind of client? Or do you notice somebody who is perhaps more confident in their role?
There definitely is a confidence boost when you have personal development,
Mm.
simply because there's not only new knowledge that you're gaining, but there's also a sense that my employer or my manager has taken a personal interest in my development. So there is confidence that there's a reason why I'm being sent on these training courses or external development conferences and things like that. So it's important to make sure that you make the most of it because not
Mm.
every employee gets that opportunity. And definitely in terms of employee engagement, as well as having a sense of belonging to an organization, these are all important factors for every employee. So
Mm.
whenever there is development opportunities, whether it's internal training, external training, or going to industry conferences, these are great ways to not only boost your confidence, but also employee engagement, as well as
Mm.
the sense of belonging.
I wanted to stay with you, Kevin, as well. Just a question around, well, mental health is a hot topic of the past few years. Now, it's being a new employee, it's going to be stressful, just the way it is. But how can people cope if they are struggling, if it is overwhelming them? Are there techniques? Is there anything that you would help them with?
Many organizations today have employee assistance programs.
Mm,
And depending on where you are in the world, some new grads that join organizations for the first time may not avail themselves of it because they don't want to have any stigma or
exactly.
potentially seem to be, oh, that person's struggling.
Mm,
So it's natural to feel like that, but I would encourage people to rethink that simply because well-being is an open topic now in many
mm,
organizations. But if employees don't feel like doing that, then going for walks, taking regular breaks, making sure that you get sufficient sleep. For those people that have high anxiety, where their pulse rates are racing or they can't sleep, then
mm,
definitely seek medical advice. Go see your GP or medical practitioner because it's important to regulate all of that so that it doesn't become a bigger problem. But it's important just to make sure that if you're feeling stressed out, just go out, go for a walk, do a 15-minute break. That's important just so that you can pause, take a
yeah.
breath, and reassess the situation.
Mm.
And many people don't, especially young grads. They just feel that they have to continue working and working and working.
Yeah, that makes complete. I can completely imagine not wanting to avail yourself of it. Is how do you approach it at Grant Thornton, Joe?
Yeah, it is, and we do have that. We do have an employee assistance program for those that
Mm,
need that support. But day to day, we have a number of individuals within our early careers team, professional qualifications team, and across our business who are charged with looking out for the well-being of those
mm,
studying through our graduate or school leaver programs, through qualifications such as ACCA, so that they've got that first point of contact so that they can reach out in the event that they're struggling. We also set up a lot of peer-to-peer learning environments or support
yeah.
environments, learning together actually, more so than the debate about whether you should do something online or whether you should do something in a
Mm,
classroom. What's really important about the classroom is bringing people together because comfort in numbers, peer-to-peer support. And that what
mm,
I often say to people is, don't forget that that network you're building in organizations, whether you're joining with 1, 2, 3 other people or 100,
mm,
those people 10, 15, 20 years down the line, they'll still be your support network.
mm,
They're still my support network. They're now partners and directors of companies all across the industry. People have moved and switched and changed. But in terms of managing well-being, you have that community of trusted peers that
yeah.
understand what you're going through, that will feel it themselves too. Because like you said, Neil, it's very normal to feel uncomfortable emotion when you're trying to get that work-life balance. But
Mm,
you must champion yourself. You must understand what your coping mechanisms are, and you might not have figured that out, in the
mm,
early days of
yeah.
getting a new job, but you have to find what works for you. So it might well be, and we talk about this with associates at Grant Thornton all the time, you must sleep, you must look
Yeah.
after your nutrition, and you must look after your physical well-being. And you might not be an athlete running marathons, you might be going for a walk, and that might
Mm,
work for you, but you might need to go to the gym, you might need to do weightlifting. Whatever it is that you need to do, you mustn't let go of that. Look after yourself first. So
mm,
you have to carve out that time, and it might not be in the same way that you were able to at university or at
sure.
school and college, middle of the day, 5 days a week. You might have to be flexible as you figure out your new work-life balance,
Mm,
but you have to carve out that time, get the right sleep, eat the right food to make
yeah.
sure you've got the energy to bring the very best version of yourself, because it's a high energy game starting a new job. You
Yeah.
have to be well fueled in all of the ways. And if
Mm,
it's not working or you're getting it wrong, which you might,
mm,
because we've never had to do it before when you start a new
yeah.
job, understanding the support network that's in place at the organization, who you can reach out to, because people in roles like mine and all of the many roles we have across Grant Thornton, we have heard everything before, and
Yeah.
we're equipped with super good advice to help you figure it out,
Yeah.
short of medical advice, which of course for some individuals is absolutely where we'd send them next. But for the
Yeah.
vast majority, it's just about having an ear, someone to talk to.
In those early days, you can feel a little bit snowblind. So sometimes you need help with that. And this is leading to my final question. And it is, when could you reasonably expect the sort of good impression period to be over?
So usually when in accounting firms, it's usually after the first job or the first case that has been completed, because you have a sense of what you're doing or potentially what you're doing, but also your supervisor or your manager would have taken notice and given you some feedback. In the corporate space, that would probably be usually after the probation period. And depending on the organization and industry that you're in, your probation period could be anywhere between 3 months and 6 months. So once the probation period has been signed off, that's when you actually know the training wheels are off and you're actually expected to go through and perform. And when you take a step back and think about it, after 3 months, many organizations are probably heading towards the mid-year review or the full-year review, depending on when you join. So you'll definitely be getting some really, really good feedback as you approach those half-year or full-year annual performance reviews. So that's another way to take stock of where you are, and definitely the training wheels will be off by then.
Training wheels, I do love that expression. Any final thoughts on that for you, Joe?
I would probably suggest not. I would probably say to always be very mindful of first impressions, because within, certainly from my experience across accountancy firms, you meet lots of new people day in, day out, each new job, each new stakeholder. As you progress through the levels, you're meeting new people time and time again. And each time, the advantage of that is you have an opportunity to reset whatever first impression you feel you might have made in the past. I think people say you can make a first impression within about 17 seconds of meeting somebody. What happens beyond then you have to work for. So you're either set up for success or you've not got it quite right for whatever reason. You're not having a good day, and then you have to spend however long changing those first impressions, which is not that's the long way cut. But I would always say, and even for me now, 15, 20 years in, every time I meet someone, I treat it like those first impressions matter. I want to look professional, sound professional, know my stuff, be going in with confidence, prepared, organized. All of those things that you would say to someone on day one is exactly how I still feel now, this far down through my career, each and every time I meet somebody new or somebody that I haven't met in a while. You know, if you're seeing people day in, day out, absolutely don't worry about it too much. But just at the back of your mind, remember, you want to put your best foot forward always, and you want to make a great first impression with everybody you speak to, regardless of your level and how well and how far you've come. So I think it matters. Your impression matters, whether it's a first, second, third, or 100th.
That's a perfect note to end on. That was fascinating. I really appreciate both of your time. For more career advice, check out the ACCA Careers website and the Student Accountant app. And if you have something in particular you'd like me to cover in the series, get in touch at studentaccountant@acccaglobal.com.
This podcast was brought to you by ACCA. Find out how we think ahead at acccaglobal.com.